Yo, I'm doing a big stretch. Turn the sounds on so whenever we start battling, we have some music. Doing a little morning stream again. I did one Friday. I'll do another one today. Um, I've been trying to make some new teams because PU has recently gotten a lot more new toys to play with. Not all of them will probably be staying, but I'm sure most of them will. And that's going to cause some things to shake up in this tier, you know? PU is pretty much the only tier I care about. So I I'm just basically just doing whatever I want with this. Let me see if I've got something here, docs. I should be able to have chat. Let me pull that up. I closed it last time and it's not immediately pulling up. There we go. Okay, I've got it. Let me expand that. I'll wait a little bit before I start actually talking about stuff. But yeah, there's quite a bit to talk about. There's like a lot of new Pokemon. And then there's like, you know, one Pokemon is getting suspect tested, and then I'm just gonna play, with whatever teams I've made. I've got like quite a bit. I did Furret last time. That was the only team I used last time. I've got a hail team, or excuse me, a snow team, a sandstorm team, a which I'm pretty sure Houndstone might get banned. Then there's the new arrivals team, which is made of almost all new arrivals. Obviously, Lurantis has been here for a while, but I needed a defogger. Then Resthog Ursaring, which is very similar to the previous team, but it does have some differences. Webb's Honchkrow, which I don't think I'll be using, mainly because I made a new team with Psychic Terrain, and it's just kind of better. If I'm just being honest, it is just kind of a better team, and I'll explain why whenever I start talking about the new mons. But yeah, so I've got a bunch of these. So I'm not sure which one I'm gonna use, but there's quite a bit of options, obviously. So I'll pick one out of these. As much as I want to play Furret again, I'm gonna do something else. So I'll go ahead and get started talking about the new Pokemon. So some tier changes have occurred, and NU has kicked out, I think, what was it, like 20 Pokemon? It's an insane amount. Let me see, it's here. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18 Pokemon, which is insane. So I'm going to be going over the new ones and how I have seen people been using them and how I've been using them throughout the last few days. Just to kind of explain, what they do, what you can expect them to do, and are they broken? So starting off alphabetical order, we got Arboliva. This is the final form of Smoliv. Grass Normal, which is unique. Obviously, there's Sawsbuck, who was Grass Normal before, but this is completely different, and that's what I love. Whenever if they do make the same type of Pokemon, like same type combination, make it extremely different. That's what I love so much. I don't like every rock type has high defense. I don't like that. Make it different. Make it have high special defense, or make it have high speed. Like Lycanroc. I really like the Lycanroc line because it's different. It's not the same old rock type every single time. But Arboliva is extremely different to Sawsbuck, whereas Sawsbuck is more fast and strong physically. With Chlorophyll, this thing is bulky with a strong special attack and extremely slow. So, I like this mon for 2 sets. One, Seed Sower. I go Terra Electric type on this because if you don't know grassy terrain, whenever you get hit, Seed Sower will start grassy terrain, and that weakens Earthquake and Earth Power, stuff like Magnitude. I don't think anyone's using Magnitude, but it does weaken that as well. Not all ground type moves, but it does weaken them. And since, Electric is only weak to ground, I think Terra Electric is a pretty decent type for Arboliva. And It allows it to avoid all of its weaknesses. It has none of the weaknesses it shares as a grass normal type. You got fire, ice, bug, poison, flying, and fighting. That's 6 weaknesses. It's too much for a defensive Pokemon. But when you go Terra Electric, you don't even have 1 a lot of times, because what's the move the opponent's most likely going to use if they're a ground type, or if they have ground coverage? It's Earthquake or Earth Power. And your grassy terrain is weakening both. So it's a pretty solid deal. Moves, Giga Drain, Earth Power. I know it's weakened by terrain, but still having that coverage to fight fire, steel, it's really nice to have, as well as electric. It is just nice to have that coverage, especially if your opponent doesn't hit you yet. You can, if they switch out, you can predict them and hit them with a strong Earth Power. I think it's still worth it to use this. If you don't want to, there's Dazzling Gleam. It doesn't really gain much as far as coverage, and that's pretty much it. This Pokemon's move pool is pretty shallow when it comes to attacking moves, but if you want Double Stab, you can go for Hyper Voice, and if you don't want that at all, you can go for Leech Seed. You can just go Giga Drain, Leech Seed, Strength Sap, Encore. Of course, that makes you super weak to opposing grass types, but that's kind of the sacrifice you have to make with a Pokemon like this. Its move pool is not too much when you look at it compared to other grass types. It just does not have the coverage. So, what do? You rely on bulk. You use Strength Sap, which is a fantastic move that I'm glad this Pokemon gets. It weakens the opponent's attack. Well, first it heals based on their attack stat, and then it weakens their attack by 1 stage, basically hitting them with Intimidate, and that is super good. That the problem with it, though, is obviously at some point their attack's going to be so low, you're going to be healing a pitiful amount, and that's obviously just something you have to keep aware of. The option of using this on a Sun team with Synthesis, and also it has Weather Ball, so you can use the Fire type Weather Ball in Sun. That is also an option. Kicking up, grassy terrain and having the Sun, boost your Synthesis, and you're boosting fire moves and grass moves at that point, and it's pretty solid for a strategy. The only problem, of course, is that Sun is going to make fire more effective against you. But if you go Terra Electric, it's not going to be super effective, and you can counteract it. The other reason why you would want to use Arboliva in Sun is Harvest. So Harvest has a 50% chance to equip the berry you've eaten already. And in the Sun, it's a 100% chance. At the end of the turn, you're always going to get it if the Sun is up. 50% is still pretty decent odds. Like half the time you're going to be getting it. So it's not bad. You can definitely stall with Protect and Substitute. I saw someone use this set against me, and it was infuriating. Seriously, it was one of the most infuriating moments I've ever had in this game, period. And that's saying something, because I played this game for over 10 years, well over 10 years. And this was one of the most infuriating moments ever, because I had won the game. Like, the game was over. I had completely just destroyed him. And this was his last Pokemon. And he freaking stalls me out with the Starf Berry, Substitute, Protect, Strength Sap, and then finally, after Starf Berry raises his special attack enough, he just Giga Drains me to hell. It is, without exaggeration, the most annoying Harvest Pokemon I have seen. The lead theme with Harvest Pokemon is that they're usually not that bulky, right? You got Exeggutor, which doesn't have, insane bulk. Trevenant, which is just terrible. And Tropius, once again, terrible. Most Harvest Pokemon are just bad, and you would never want to use Harvest as opposed to like other abilities. You would always want to go with something else. But in this case, this Pokemon has pretty decent bulk. 78 HP, that's almost 80. 90 defense, which is good. 109 special defense, which is great. This thing can actually take quite a few hits. And if you stall with all of its abilities to heal, all of its moves to heal, and stall out with Protect and Substitute, this thing is nigh unkillable if you get lucky with Harvest and Starf Berry. Now, what does Starf Berry do? It gives you a random +2 boost in any stat. I don't know if it includes evasion. No, it does not include evasion, which is actually better in my opinion, because it focuses more on the actual stats of your Pokemon. So, sure, you can have a raised speed or attack, which is useless, but more often than not, you're going to be raising your defense, your special defense, or special attack, and all of those are appreciated. And that's how I ended up losing to this thing, because it boosted all the right stats at the perfect time, and it was annoying. You do have to be at 1/4 HP, which is what the substitute is there for. The substitute is there to keep you low. So yeah, this thing is just this thing is so annoying. Is it reliable? No, definitely not. I could have fought this guy who was using this and completely destroyed him because he got the wrong boost on turn 1. He literally won because he got the perfect boost against me on the first turn of that berry activating. That's the only reason he won. So if I were to use this, I would never win because I'm not lucky. But maybe you're lucky, right? Maybe you're pretty good at trying your odds and winning that way. Go for it. And another Terra type for this, I would say, is water. Water is pretty good, especially if you're not using Seed Sower. No point going electric at that point. Just go water. Again, you're no longer weak to anything that grass and normal are weak to. You're only weak to grass and electric. That's why water is such a good defensive typing. It only has 2 weaknesses. And yeah, you go for water, and you have Giga Drain, so you're going to get opposing waters, as well as ground and rocks. So you're hitting the stuff you need to hit as a grass type that's pretending to be a water type. Weird mechanic, but I do like Terra type as a mechanic. It's pretty interesting. It makes games very fun, for the most part. So yeah, stall, annoying thing. Next is Bombardier, which is the death of Honchkrow. Honchkrow is completely dead. Like, this thing is so bad. I hate it because I want it to be good. Because I love Honchkrow. I think its design is really sick. I've loved it since Gen 4. But man, it is just the worst ever because they remove superpower. Why would they do that? Game Freak is just cruel. Like, for Game Freak to actually take away superpower and move its head since Gen 4, I think, is just completely uncalled for. Like, it is abnormally cruel for Game Freak to do something like this. And so Honchkrow has plummeted, and I don't think it's done plummeting. It's in PU now, which is like almost bottom tier. I think it's untiered. I think by the end of 2 weeks, it's going to be untiered. Like, no doubt in my mind, you can't convince me otherwise. This thing is hitting rock bottom. All because they removed superpower. Now, I'm not going to pretend like this thing, if it had superpower, would be the best thing since sliced bread. No, of course not. But it would at least be, I think, NU, just because the raw power of Choice Band Bravebird with Moxie boosting it, Sucker Punch for priority. Like, you have all these things, and then you slap superpower on top of it to make it one of the, just one of the strongest coverage moves, 120 base power. It's so good. And I think it's just insulting, especially because, you got Braviary. Braviary has superpower. It already I think it just learns it naturally. And then it also got Close Combat this gen. Like, it got Close Combat as a move it could use instead of superpower. And Honchkrow gets it taken away. Honchkrow doesn't get Close Combat. Like, why? What's the reason for the favoritism? Like, what's going on? But yeah, this thing is just really sad. It's pathetic because this thing exists. Now, it's not as strong, but it is 11 points faster. If you look at its bulk as well, this thing's got 100 HP but 52 defenses, so it's really just not... It's got good HP, but it's just not bulky. Bombardier has 70, 85, 85. Much more balanced, much more well-rounded stats here. And yeah, even though it doesn't have the power, it doesn't have Moxie, it's still just going to be better for a few reasons. One, it has knockoff. Why doesn't Honchkrow have knockoff? Like, why? Almost every dark type has freaking knockoff. Why doesn't it? So yeah, the only thing I'll say is when Honchkrow uses Bravebird, because it has such high HP at 100, it is going to be able to use Bravebird more often, because the recoil is less effective on its total bulk because of that high HP. This thing doesn't have the high HP, so Bravebird's going to hurt it more in general, right? But it has knockoff. So it's just so much better than Night Slash. Does it have priority? No, it does not have Sucker Punch. Oh, never mind, it does. It does. My bad. This thing is just so much better. Oh, it hurts. It also has Drill Run, which is extremely good. I mean, this thing just has like so much coverage. It's not a special attacker, but it has Heat Wave. It has all these rock moves. It has U-turn. It has so much. I'm a bet that they took away Roost from this thing. Oh my God, they took away Roost. Why do they hate it? Why do they hate Honchkrow so much? I'm telling you, Game Freak, someone up there lost like one game to Honchkrow and swore a vendetta against it for life. That's insane. Anyway, this thing has like every move in the game, as opposed to Honchkrow having nothing. So Bombardier is just going to be automatically better. I'm sorry. Its abilities aren't as good. Big Pex is just bad. Keen Eye, bad. Rocky Payload, however, is pretty decent. It basically gives you stab on rock moves. And you can go Terra Rock to get double stab on rock moves. So it's kind of cool. It's unique. It's a bird with rock moves, which is unheard of. So having this is really good. Now, if you run Drill Run instead of Stone Edge, that's totally fine because Drill Run is great coverage. It beats Steel. It beats Rock. Two things that flying types have issues dealing with statistically. But Stone Edge is also cool because it beats other flying types. It beats Fire, Ice, Bug. It's just a very good coverage move to have, and the fact that it has Stab over it because of Rocky Payload, it's very interesting. I think it's an interesting Pokemon for sure. And the cool thing about having rock moves is not only does it have Stone Edge, Rock Slide. I think it even has Rock Blast, right? Yeah, it has Rock Blast as well. It also has Stealth Rock, which means it's an excellent lead Pokemon, something that, once again, Honchkrow cannot do. This thing, you throw a Sash on it, you send it out first, and it kind of reminds me of Crocodile, right? You send out Crocodile. Crocodile has similar speed to this. I think it has 92. This is 82. But, it's decently fast, decently bulky, decently strong. You set up your Stealth Rock. Your opponent tries probably to set up their own Stealth Rock, and then you can knock them off. You can get rid of their item, and then you could just completely destroy them with Brave Bird or Stone Edge because again your ability boosts your rock moves. So I mean this thing is very good, and statistically speaking, a lot of leads are Rock and Steel. So maybe you do want to go for Drill Run. If you go for Drill Run, I recommend going for like Keen Eye. I mean it's not going to do anything. Big Pex isn't going to do anything either. But just in case your opponent somehow finds a way, like Sand Veil or Snow Cloak, I don't know. I don't think those abilities are banned. If for some reason they're using that, this is really good to stop them from abusing it. Big Pex really just does not play a role. I mean, yeah, your defense can't fall, cool, but there's not many moves that drop your defense reliably in PU. So I don't think it's that worth it to run. I think I would rather have Keen Eye. But that's up to you. Overall, I'm going to use Rocky Payload because that hard-hitting Stone Edge with Brave Bird and Knockoff. I mean, 3 stabs. 3 stabs. It's super good. So much power. So yeah. Rest in peace, Honchkrow. It's going to be untiered for the first time ever. And welcome the new flying Dark-type Overlord. Next up. Clawitzer. This thing, I love Clawitzer so much. Design-wise, it's so cool. I love Pokemon that have, not just Pokemon. I love creatures or characters in general that have one gigantic blaster or one gigantic arm. And the asymmetry is just it draws your attention so much because it's oh wow, this guy is horribly unbalanced, and yet he is the biggest threat in the room. And that's kind of how I feel about Clawitzer. In almost any tier he gets slapped in. He is one of the strongest hitting Pokemon in PU for sure. Just right out the bat with raw power. Because you got Specs or Scarf. I think Scarf is really good in PU. It does outrun most things. And then you've got Specs, which is just raw damage. Absolutely just disgusting. If you do go Scarf, I recommend Timid. If you're going Specs, I recommend Speed. Now, why would I recommend Speed instead of HP? Clearly, its stats are more bulk focused, and that's true. You can go for bulk if you want. Me personally, I would rather outspeed all the faster Pokemon. There's another Pokemon on this list that I'll get to that has higher speed for a defensive Pokemon, and I want to outspeed those types. I want to outspeed the base 70s, the base 60s, 65s, 75s even. I want to outspeed them naturally just to catch them off guard and get some surprise kills in there. Now, Clawitzer has a fantastic move pool. It's got Water Pulse. Now, you would never use this normally, but Mega Launcher boosts the power of Pulse moves. And if you're playing in doubles, Heal Pulse is even strengthened, which I think is really cool. And I think it does get Heal Pulse. Does it not? Let me look in usually useless moves. Yeah, it does get Heal Pulse. That's really cool. And Helping Hand. So Water Pulse goes from 60 to 90 base power, which is just stronger outright than Scald. Is it stronger than Hydro Pump? No. But it is basically tying with Surf, right? You could make an argument to just use Surf, but Water Pulse does have a chance to confuse. And while confusion is not reliable, you'd probably just rather go with Water Pulse as opposed to Surf. Not only for that, but because its power points are near limitless. 32 is insane. You'll never stop spamming this move. So you don't really have to worry about that as opposed to Surf, which I believe only has 24. Yeah, which I say only 24 like it's bad. Like 24 is fantastic. But just giving you an example, like Water Pulse just has a ton of usage. So you can go for that. Of course, that does make you weaker if your opponent hits you with like Worry Seed for some reason. Then you run out of your ability and your Water Pulse is really weak. But it doesn't just boost that. It boosts Dark Pulse. It boosts Aura Sphere because I think this is a Pulse move in Japanese. I think that's why it boosts this. And also boosts Dragon Pulse. Now, there's not really any Dragon types in PU. There might be one. Actually, there are two. There's Appleton and Flapple. And you can hit them for super effective damage. If you're trying to hit Appleton, though, I just say go ahead and go for Ice Beam. Where's that? There it is. I just say go ahead and go for Ice Beam. If they're not running Thick Fat, this is going to hurt. However, if most of them do run Thick Fat, so you could honestly run Dragon Pulse and hit it for more damage. You're still probably not going to kill it because it's Appleton. But yeah, you've got a wide range of moves to choose from. Aura Sphere is just going to be better than Focus Blast every day of the week because it's getting boosted by Mega Launcher to be the same power as Focus Blast. Shadow Ball, Sludge Bomb to hit those grass types unexpectedly, as well as fairies. There are a few fairies in this tier. And yeah, I mean, like this mon just has a ton to play with. Now you've got U-turn and flip turn. Me personally, I go for U-turn because Poliwrath exists. And it does have Water Absorb. And there's a few other Pokemon with Water Absorb or Storm Drain that you theoretically have to look out for. And I prefer to have U-turn because nothing is immune to Bug. I would just much rather do this. Is my flip turn even going to be doing that much damage? No. I mean, I'm running minus attack. It's only 73 base. So I don't think the damage from flip turn, if it's just going to be just barely any higher, I don't think it's worth it. Compared to U-turn just consistently always getting me out of there. And because Clawitzer is slower, chances are your opponent's going to switch, then you hit him with U-turn. Oh no, excuse me. You're always going to go last anyway. But if your opponent stays in and goes for attack, they're going to be faster than you most likely, and you're going to U-turn out of there second, which gives you momentum. So, I really like Clawitzer. I think it's a fantastic wall breaker to the tier. And I mean, just looking at it, it does hit quite a bit. Obviously, you have to worry about Chansey, but you can hit Appleton very strong. You can hit Abomasnow with Aura Sphere very strong. You can hit Articuno pretty decently strong. It doesn't have anything super effective against Articuno, but it still does not like getting pummeled by Water Pulse over and over again. Carbink gets destroyed. There's just like a lot of stuff. Cryogonal as well. Cryogonal is one of the most used Pokemon. Aura Sphere just destroys it. Farigiraf gets destroyed by Dark Pulse. Hatchrim as well with Dark Pulse. Haunter. I could go on. This Pokemon hits very hard, and it hits a lot of Pokemon in a tier. So it's good. It's good. I like it. Specs for raw power. Scarf for the surprise factor. And it's really good. Next up, Golem. Both Golems, actually. Funny how they made a new form to improve it, and it's just as bad as the original. Golem used to be really good in like Gen 1 and 2, and then after that, it's just consistently fallen off more and more. Mostly because of more competition, right? This is the rock type build: high defense, high attack, decent bulk, and then slow speed. This is like the same thing every single rock type has. Like, there's very few rock types and ground types, honestly, that break this mold. And this is the Pokemon that said it. Like, this is the one that made that mold. That and Rhydon having near identical stats. Why? Anyway, this thing is pretty good in PU. It's pretty consistent because it's always been, kind of a good lead Pokemon, especially once Stealth Rock came around. You get to use this. You can explode. I would go Terra Normal if you're going to go for the lead explode set. You got the Custap Berry. That's in the game, so you can use it and have a lot of fun with that. 120 base attack is really good. 130 defense is also very good. It's just like the rest of its stats are just, I mean, its HP is decent, but it's just terrible special bulk and speed. So I run max speed anyway because I want my opponent to bring me down to low HP, either with sturdy or just naturally living it at 25% or below. And if you do get at 25%, Custap Berry is going to activate, and then you can explode in their face. Now, of course, Golem has been around and doing this same routine for so long that literally everyone in the entire world who plays Pokemon knows this thing is going to explode. So if the opponent if the opponent has a ghost type, they're going to switch into it. If this thing ever hits 25% or lower HP, your opponent is going to switch into a ghost type. Don't be afraid to use that and just go for Earthquake or Stone Edge instead. I feel like that's a better move, honestly. I don't think this thing has Sucker Punch anymore. It used to have Sucker Punch. No, it only had Sucker Punch in Gen 4. And you just kept migrating it up. But at some point, they stopped you from using old school moves like that. So, rip to Sucker Punch Golem. But this thing, this thing, honestly, I don't think it really needs it because it's got a very clear thing it wants to do. And Alolan Golem has two clear things it wants to do. One is Galvanize, and I really like this ability. You don't have Return anymore, so you either go with Body Slam or Double Edge. You can very easily go for the Rock Polish set, double your speed. Whenever you double the speed, you got 189. You double that and you get, what is that, 380. Just shy of 380. I think it's like 378. Yeah. So it's relatively fast. It's not going to be outrunning the base 130s, but I think was it 378? If I just make a new team real quick, I go to Dugtrio, right? Dugtrio is the fastest Pokemon in the tier besides Electrode. 372. So you are outspeeding, barely, you are outspeeding Dugtrio, the second fastest Pokemon in tier, with this. Of course, Electrode's going to outspeed you anyway. Electrode's going to outspeed everything, so don't worry about it. But this thing, with a Rock Polish, it is going to be outspeeding everything except for Scarf Pokemon. Scarf Pokemon will still outspeed this if they have a decent speed stat. Pretty much anything with like 250 base speed, I think is going to be like 250, not base speed, but anywhere above 250 in their speed stat with a Scarf is going to outspeed you. So Golem is, not the fastest thing alive, even with Rock Polish. Your chances of sweeping are kind of slim unless you're using Sticky Web. So if you run Sticky Web, if you got this, you can do some pretty cool stuff. This set I had just ripped straight from a Pokegame video, where he used Body Slam, which is now an electric move because of Galvanize, and it's got boosted 20% power. Earthquake for coverage, not even going for Stone Edge because it's not really important. And then Terra Blast Ice for the Bolt Beam coverage, right? And I forget what item he used, but I use Life Orb because you're going to need all the power you can get. If you don't one-shot something, you dead. So I think it's more important to get that extra oomph from the Life Orb. If not already cutting into your longevity, but oh well. I think there was a potential for Alolan Golem to change the stats because obviously if you look at Golem and Alolan, they're the same. And I just I wish they would have tweaked the stats a little bit, maybe made it a bit faster, dropped the special attack to 0, and then put that 55 points in other stats. But I call it the Beedrill effect because Beedrill has literally 10 special attack when it Mega Evolves. And I think Pokemon needs to do that more often. So yeah, so Alolan Golem, it's not that great. The other thing it can do is Magnet Pull if you want to trap Steel types. This is just, to me, a useless ability now. I said it. I'm going to keep saying it. I will stand by this as long as Terra type is a thing, because as long as Terra type is a thing, you trap the Steel types, okay, they change into a Fire type and kill you. Or in this case, they change to a Ground type and kill you, right? Not to mention a lot of Steel types just have Earthquake. So this thing is just not worth it at all. The reason that Magnezone could do it was because it specifically targeted Skarmory and Corviknight. And even then, Gen 8 gave them Body Press. So it's not like Magnezone had a chance in that gen either. Just Magnet Pull in general is just no longer a good ability in this generation. In the future, if Terra type is removed in like Gen 10 or whatever, if Terra type is gone, I think Magnet Pull becomes significantly better. But it's always given to Pokemon that are weak to like Earthquake or fighting moves. So all your Steel types are going to be prepared to kill them anyway. So yeah, unless they're faster than the opposing Steel and strong enough to just one-shot them outright, chances are the Magnet Pull is not going to be doing much in this game. So I would say if you're going to use Alolan Golem, go for this set. Like, just completely go for it, or go for Choice Band, max speed, max attack. You can use Double Edge instead of Body Slam, and Stone Edge. You can throw Stone Edge on here. So yeah, that's honestly my best advice, is just to ignore Magnet Pull and just go straight for Galvanize. Moving on, we've got Hatterene. Now Hatterene is the pre-evolution, the middle stage of Hatterene. It is not Psychic Fairy, which I think is really freaking lame. But being pure Psychic is not terrible either. You switch into fighting. Of course, you do have to worry about knockoff, which almost every fighting type has, like dark coverage. So you do have to worry about that. But this especially has to worry about it because it's reliant on the Eviolite, because it is a mid-form, a mid-evolution. It needs Eviolite to gain any sort of defensive advantage. And with it, its bulk is pretty decent. Its bulk is not bad at all. It's just super reliant on it. So anything like Trick, Knockoff, you're done. Draining Kiss, I still go for this instead of a Psychic move, because while 86 is a decent special attack for PU standards, I feel like Draining Kiss, the coverage, being able to hit Dark, and fighting anyway, since that's what Psychic's going to do, I feel like this is still just more worth it, especially if you Terra type into the Fairy type here. You can just go for this, have it, get stab on it now, and you're recovering 75% of the damage you're dealing. It's overall pretty good. It gives this thing longevity, because you can't run leftovers. You have to run Eviolite. It's nice to be able to heal yourself. Now, I think Hatterene is best whenever you're using it for Trick Room. I think this is the best use for this Pokemon in this tier, because there's a lot of slow, powerful Pokemon, like Avalugg. There's Ursaring, Golem. Both Golem forms are slow. They can be used for Trick Room. Choice Band, Alolan Golem with Hatterene. There's definitely some potential there. So overall, I think Trick Room is probably going to be the best thing this thing can do. I mean, Magic Bounce is such a good ability, because if your opponent tries to set up on you, you just, Uno Reverse, now you've got rocks, or webs, or whatever. The problem with webs for this is because it is pure Psychic as opposed to Psychic Fairy, it's weak to Bug. And that's why I said it's lame, because having that Fairy typing is invaluable. So not having it is pretty rough for this thing. But it also has Healing Wish, which I think is super cool. You send this thing in, you use Trick Room, you reverse the speed stats now, and before your opponent can try and stall you out of using up your turns, you go for Healing Wish. You heal whatever you bring in, and now you have 3 whole turns of whatever the slow, powerful Pokemon you bring in is, and it just gets the wreck house. It just gets to completely destroy whatever your opponent has. Of course, they can try and play around you by switching a bunch of times if the situation's right. But the ability to just completely upend the speed tiers and just hit it super hard over and over again with an unexpected Pokemon is very valuable. And I don't think when people see this, I don't think people immediately think Trick Room. They think Magic Bounce, and I think being able to do that is good. Now, if you are using Trick Room, maybe you don't want to use Nuzzle, right? Maybe you want to use Mystical Fire for coverage, or maybe just a Psychic move, right? Maybe you just want to go for Psyshock. Maybe don't go for the move that makes the opponent slower. Or you can go for Calm Mind. You can try and, max HP, max defense, go for Calm Mind, Draining Kiss, Terra Fairy. And this thing could potentially sweep on its own. So there is some potential for that as well. But I think Hatcham is a good addition to the tier. I think it's really interesting to have. And yeah, I mean, Magic Bounce is just, it's so good it makes a Pokemon that's not even fully evolved viable. And that's insane. Next up, Indeedee. Now, you might be wondering, wait a minute, we've had Indeedee in PU. Correct, but also wrong, because this is the male Indeedee. Now, the male is different than the female in a few ways. This one has this one has 95 base speed, 105 base special attack, and more so offensively focused, as opposed to the female Indeedee being more defensive in its stats, which is super lame. This thing having more offensive because of Psychic Surge, it's just so much better than the female form. But the fact that you have both of them means, you can use them in different tiers. Not anymore, because Indeedee female, is probably just going to drop to ZU and probably get borderline banned from that because it's too strong. So you're probably just going to have both of these in PU at the same time, which is weak. Something else I think is really freaking stupid that I just want to take freaking Game Freak and just grab him by the throat and just choke him, is that this thing learns Trick Room, but the female form does not. Unless that has changed, I don't think this thing learns Trick Room. It does! Oh, finally! Okay. We're so back. But yeah, so let me rebuild this. I think this thing is best whenever you're using a Specs or a Scarf. It does not have Expanding Force anymore. If you see here, it's just Extra Sensory instead of Expanding Force. I go for Psyshock because Chansey does exist in this tier for some reason. I have no idea why Chansey is in PU. But, okay. And then you can either go for Trick. You can Trick Specs them. Or you can Healing Wish. I'm a huge fan of Healing Wish. I love this move. I think this is so good. Whenever this Pokemon has exhausted all of its offensive potential, I can discard it and bring in something else fully healed. Cures their status, cures their HP. It's so good. It's so nice to be able to do that. So I really like. Or does it cure its status? It doesn't say it cures its status. Maybe it just heals HP. Either way, it's invaluable. It's so good to be able to use this type of move. And thank God it's not the only form of it that can use Trick Room. The faster form used to be the only one that could use Trick Room for some stupid reason. But they fixed that, thank God. The cool thing about this thing being Psychic Normal is that it's now the third Psychic Normal in the tier. We've got Farigiraf and Weirdeer, the evolved form of Stantler. So one of them has got to go, right? I feel like it's got to be Weirdeer. One of them's got to be untiered by the end of this month, right? There's too much competition for this type. Technically, there's 4 because Indeedee female, but it's too much. It's too much. We need to get rid of him. Is a Rangaroo in this game as well? Hold on. Is a Rangaroo here? There's no O. Let me go down to O tier. Oh my God. There's 5. There's 5 normal psychic types, bro. Also, Indeedee female is untiered now. Interesting. It already is. Is Weirdeer untiered? Scroll down. Haha, it is. Okay. So there's 2 then. There's this and there's Farigiraf. Those are the only 2 in PU left. Gotcha. It doesn't stop you from using the others. You can totally do it, but it's just very funny. A lot of psychic normal types end up here, despite the fact that it's actually a really good typing. You lose your resistance to fighting, which is lame, but you're immune to ghost, which is outstanding. A lot of times, if you ever fought Spiritomb, they have to choose between using Shadow Ball or Dark Pulse. If they're physical, they had to choose between Sucker Punch or Poltergeist, Shadow Sneak, or used to Pursuit. So sometimes whenever they have to choose, they choose Ghost instead of Dark, and you can just straight up wall them, and there's nothing they can do about it. This thing's move pool is pretty decent. They got rid of Mystical Fire, which I'm upset about. I wish they kept that, but oh well. You have Psyshock to deal with, Haunter, hits Chansey harder, Dazzling Gleam to hit Dark types, and Fighting types again. There's no dragons in PU really, so there's one that matters. That's Appleton, but again, Psyshock might just hit harder because they usually run special defense. Shadow Ball, good for hitting opposing ghost types. You already hit Haunter with Psyshock, but ghost, other ghost types that exist, Shadow Ball is good for hitting them. What's his name? Houndstone. So again, you can go for Trick or Healing Wish, or you can go for another move. Energy Ball is a good one. I think Energy Ball is pretty good. I don't think it has Focus Blast, unfortunately. But it does have Terra Blast, so if you want to run Terra Blast Fighting, that's totally valid. You don't even have to run specs. You can run Calm Mind. Calm Mind, Encore, Draining Kiss, Psyshock. The potential for this thing is really big, and I love the fact that it's, being Psychic type, having the ability to turn off priority with Psychic Terrain is so huge because you don't get hit by Sucker Punch. You don't get hit by Shadow Sneak. It's so nice. First impression, you don't get hit by so many moves that are super effective. Mach Punch, Bullet Punch, both those moves are, neutral hitting, so you're completely negating those as well. Aqua Jet from Basculin, which is a huge threat. You just shut that down, and it's so good. And speaking of so good, we got another Sticky Web user. Now, for a while, we've been using Masquerain, and if you're insane, Spite Ops. This thing is a little bit better. I don't know if it's strictly better than Masquerain, because, Masquerain has the ability to sweep because of Quiver Dance. It forces your opponent to get rid of it fast, as opposed to trying to dance around it. If I send in Masquerain and my opponent has Hatcham with Magic Bounce, I could predict them to switch into Hatcham to bounce back the Sticky Web, and I can just go for Quiver Dance instead. And now, especially with that thing being psychic, now I can just bug buzz it to death. And there goes their sticky web counter, their magic bounce user. Now I can just use Sticky Web for free. It also has, Hydro Pump, Ice Beam, Air Slash, Energy Ball. Has such good coverage. I think Masquerain is such a good Sticky Web user because it's similar to Rabombi. Rabombi also has Quiver Dance. It also has the ability to sweep with Moonblast. It is a strong Pokemon in its own right. It's OU for a reason because it is super fast, super consistent at using Sticky Web, and because of Shield Dust, it doesn't flinch. Masquerain doesn't have Shield Dust, but it does have Intimidate, which is an insane ability as well. Leavanny does not have as insane of an ability. It has Overcoat, which is, it's cool, I guess. If the opponent tries to get rid of your Focus Sash with Sandstorm, Hippopotas, you avoid it. It used to be better because it also countered hail when it was hail. Now it's snow, so it doesn't do damage like that. It also makes you immune to powder moves. Problem is, it's already a grass type, so it's automatically immune to those moves. So it's, Overcoat is not as appreciated. And honestly, if you don't want to go for this, if you want to go for Swarm instead, totally valid. 100% valid if you want to go for Swarm to get that extra lunge power. It does not have Leech Life. It has X-Scissor, but why would you use X-Scissor when you have lunge? Honestly, they should buff X-Scissor to be a high crit ratio move and make it 90 base power. I feel like that would be so much better. But yeah, so this thing, with lunge, it's going to drop the opponent's attack unless your name is Lurantis, which I had someone do against me. It boosted my attack, and I just completely destroyed Leavanny. It was so funny. But yeah, it also has, Leaf Blade to use both of its stabs. It also hits rock, ground, water very effectively. Knock Off to get rid of items, which is super important for leads. It's so great for this thing to have Knock Off as a lead. Again, if the opponent switches into Hatcham, now you can hit it with Knock Off, and then 2-hit combo it with Lunge, Sticky Web later because they don't have their Magic Bounce user. It's really good. Looking at the rest of it, I mean, it's got low kick for steal if you want to hit that super effectively. Switcheroo, if you really want to be crazy and you want to run like Scarf or Band, you can switcheroo this thing on a Pokemon that does not want it, like Hatchrim, and then just go for Sticky Web later. Like the potential on this thing is really good, and I am excited to see what people do with this. And not only is the potential for this thing to be good as a Sticky Web user here, it's also a Sun Sweeper. It's got Chlorophyll. And look at the attack. I mean, 1 of 3 base attack is pretty good in PU. So you've got Lunge, you got Leaf Blade. I think this thing also gets Solar Blade, if I'm correct. No. It has Solar Beam, but not Solar Blade. Game Freak, why? Anyway, that's so frustrating. Has Fell Stinger if you want to be gimmicky. It does have Bullet Seed, so you could run loaded dice. That would be interesting. But yeah, so this thing, I mean, it's got Sword Stance. So you use Sword Stance, Lunge, Leaf Blade, Knock Off, or Low Kick again. Or you can Terra type, right? You can go Terra Fire and completely get rid of your times 4 weakness to Fire. And Flying for that matter. So there's a lot of good potential for this thing being a Sun Sweeper as well. And I mean, you could totally just run Chlorophyll on a Sticky Web set too, and you could run a Sun Sticky Web team and do both. Like this thing has a lot of versatility as opposed to Masquerain. Masquerain is pretty much always going to be Sticky Web or Quiver Dance. It's going to be running both, and it's going to have like 2 attacking moves, right? This can be multiple things. Your opponent sees this and they might automatically think Sticky Web, but then you pull out a surprise Sunny Day out of nowhere. There's potential for that. I think this thing is a pretty solid Pokemon overall, and I think it's a great addition to PU. It might be too great. It might get banned, which is what I'm thinking. But, I've seen stranger things. Good series. 4 seasons, pretty solid so far. 5th season, I don't think it's going to be good, but we'll see. Ludicolo. Speaking of weather, this thing's a monster, right? This thing is the Swift Swim user. It's got like Rain Dish and own tempo, but no one uses it. Everyone just uses Swift Swim because it's so good. Its typing of Water Grass is so unique. Even like to this generation, the first Water Grass type besides itself was finally introduced in the game. And that was a legendary. So if a legendary has this typing, it's got to be good, right? But in all, jokes aside, Water Grass is a pretty good type. It's pretty solid. I like it. I think it's very good defensively. You quad resist water. You also resist you're neutral to grass. But you're also you're immune to Spore, right? You're immune to Sleep Powder. You're immune to Leech Seed and all that. It's very nice to have those qualities. It's a pretty decent defensive typing, and it's also pretty good offensively. Hydro Pump and Energy Ball, those 2 moves hit a lot of things very hard, super effective. Of course, Grass walls both of those types, so you have Ice Beam, and you can just break through it. Now, this thing, I don't think it has Nasty Plot or anything. I looked through it. I didn't see it. It has Sword Stance, which is funny. But it does not have Nasty Plot. So you don't really have a way of boosting your power further. Even if this thing had Growth, it would not be worth it because it's just Growth only works in the sun, right? Or it's only worth it to use in the sun. So yeah, I mean it doesn't really have a way of boosting. So the raw power is a little bit on the weaker side, 90 base power. That's why everyone goes modest with Life Orb. Because you really need all the power you can get. Thankfully, its move pool is really good because Hydro Pump, 110 base power, Energy Ball, 90. You can go for Leaf Storm for 130 base power, but it does, of course, cut your special attack by 2 stages after you use it, so you can't spam it. Ice Beam, don't use Blizzard. Please, for the love of God, don't use Blizzard. Ice Beam is just so much better because it's more consistent. Even if it's weaker. So, I mean, it's got the coverage for it. It's got the base power moves. It's pretty decent. But besides that, I mean, it just really doesn't have too much going for it. It does have Focus Blast if you hate yourself. So, yeah, I mean, setting base speed doubled is pretty decent. 239, again, is pretty solid. You're going to be outspeeding most things with double speed, except for Electrode, of course. But yeah, anything shy of Electrode is going to be outsped by this. You will have a few Choice Scarf Pokemon that could outrun this, but they're rare. They're few and far between. So this is pretty solid. Unlike, like I was saying with Golem, when you double its speed, it can still be outrun very easily. This is a little bit harder to outrun. 70 doubled is like, that's basically just 240 base speed. That's 480, 478 to be exact. So it's very fast. So yeah, it is something to outspeed almost everything and sweep from there. But for the Terra type, I mean, you can go for Grass to get extra oomph. You can go for Ice to get Stab, Ice Beam. Bring up that move's power. I think that's especially valuable whenever you're facing Appleton. So again, I don't think Appleton can 1v1 you, but I do think it is nice to be able to kill it faster so you don't weaken yourself to priority moves, right? Psychic Terrain would be good in rain teams because Psychic Terrain, it's actually pretty good because you can stop priority from killing Ludicolo. I don't know if there's a first impression user in PU. I'm not entirely sure. Let me see. First impression. Yeah. Oh, there are. Spidops, no. Phalanx, no. Okay, so you don't really have to worry about it. But, in the future, let's say if there's a first impression Pokemon that gets put in PU, that falls to PU, right? Psychic Terrain could stop that. It stops Sucker Punch, it stops Ice Shard, it stops every priority move. So it's really, really nice. As long as they're grounded. So yeah, Ludicolo, fantastic Rain Sweeper. Weather is eating good right now. Weather just got a Sun Sweeper and a Rain Sweeper. Very nice. There's Muck. This thing is disgusting. And I'm not talking about its physical appearance. Sticky Hold Leftovers is so good. And yes, you use Leftovers instead of Black Sludge because Terra type exists. You don't want to go into Ghost and then kill your HP every turn because you're no longer poisoned. And why Ghost, right? Why Ghost? Because Shadow Sneak. This thing has had this move since Gen 4. And it's so nice that it can finally fully abuse it by going Ghost. And not only can you abuse this by going Ghost, you can curse as a Ghost type and hurt your opponent really hard every turn. I've had someone do that to me, and that was very interesting. That's the first time I've ever seen that happen, where a curse user changes to Ghost mid-game and then afflicts me. Super cool. If you're going for the curse set, which is very powerful, I would go max HP, max special defense, and just boost your defense and attack from there. Who cares about the speed? It does not really matter if you're going Glass because your speed is already low at 50. Drain Punch to heal. You could also go Terra Fighting, by the way, and make yourself still really good because, one, as a fighting type, you would get Stab or Drain Punch and heal more damage because you're doing more damage. Then you're also hitting fairies because of Poison Jab with Stab still because that's how Terra type works. And then you have Shadow Sneak to deal with Ghost types that want to switch into your fighting moves. So honestly, if you go Terra Fighting or Terra Ghost or just remain Poison, this is fantastic coverage overall. Like, it is so good. Because if you go as Ghost, you're worried about Dark types, right? Well, just Drain Punch them. It's such a good move pool here. These three moves cover each other no matter what type you are. It is so cool. And this set is very effective because of it. The opponent cannot knock you off. They cannot trick you, and trick is everywhere in PU. So Sticky Hold is just such a good middle finger to that. It kind of looks like Muck is holding his middle finger up. So having just the ability to just ignore item removal, knockoff is super weak. So even if you go Ghost, they're not going to be doing too much damage with knockoff. I sound like I'm talking about like Danny Phantom when I say going Ghost. Butterbean, what are you doing, baby? What are you doing, baby dog? What are you doing? Sorry, I had to play with my dog. She was looking for attention. Yes, because you're a little attention. A little attention whore, yes. You want the attention? Anyway, the other says AV. I think this is really good, again, with Sticky Hold because they cannot knock it off. They cannot trick you. And you have a ton of natural special defense. I mean, this mon's stats, despite being Gen 1, are not bad. Good HP, good attack, good special defense, decent defense to work with. And then the rest of it's slow. I mean, like, it doesn't really need to be very high. You don't need special attack. You don't need speed. So this thing is just solid. And even with a vest, you can run gunk shot or poison jabs, up to you. Knockoff, fantastic. Drain punch, again, healing. Shadow sneak, priority, just do that little bit of chip. And it's just so good. I love it so much. Alternatively, instead of drain punch, you can run brick break to get rid of screens. Aurora Veil is in this tier. You can't use light clay, but it is in this tier, so you do have to look out for it a little bit. And it is worth it, I think, to switch it off if you feel like you keep losing to Aurora Veil over and over again. Drain punch is going to be your go-to though, just because it gives this thing longevity. Because you don't have leftovers. You're running assault vest, so you need something to circumvent that. Next up is Orthworm. Now, Orthworm is the reason why I mentioned Clawwitzer running speed instead of max HP, because you do want to outrun this thing. Because surprisingly, it has 65 base speed. Now, this is like basically Walmart Steelix. This is Steelix at home when you look at it. But I would say in many ways it is actually kind of better than Steelix. And there's a few reasons. One, this insane ability, which is basically just Vault Absorb for ground, which Levitate is already an insanely good ability for most Pokemon that have it. Earth Eater is just absurd. Yeah, this thing is crazy. So there's two sets I've seen running around. That is the hardcore lead set with like Heavy Slam, Body Press, Stealth Rock, and Spikes. And then there's this set. This set from hell. Iron Tail with Coil boosting its accuracy is now always going to hit, and it has a strong chance of dropping your opponent's defense. Absurd. Body Press, which is going to be boosted again because Coil is boosting your defense. And even like uninvested, your defense is higher than your attack, so this is going to be doing massive damage. I mean, these two moves cover each other fairly well. You do have to watch out for ghost types. Like if there's, if there's a ghost type that resists steel, be it water, electric, like Rotom will resist both of these moves. Water Ghost, I don't think there's a Water Ghost in PU. I don't think there's a Steel Ghost in PU. And I think that's it that resists Steel. I think that's pretty much it. So you can just like hit most things in the tier. And even then, like Rotom's not going to like this very well. Now Rotom can hit you with a Trick or a Will-O-Wisp and completely destroy you that way. So I do recommend getting rid of Rotom. If you if you want to win with this thing, with like the Coil set, get rid of Rotom before you do anything else. Or at the very least, make sure it cannot Trick Scarf you. You look at the Terra type. I was confused when someone went Terra Electric because I'm like, why wouldn't you go like Terra Fighting or, Terra Water to resist fire, no longer be weak to fighting? But this is genius because Terra Electric means you have no weakness because Earth Eater is now making your weakness a healing factor, which is outstanding. The fact that this thing can just not only just switch in and not be afraid of any super effective damage shy of Mold Breaker Earthquake, right? This thing is insane. And going Terra Electric also counters opposing Earthworms. You're no longer weak to opposing Body Press, and you resist opposing Iron Tail or Heavy Slam. Now, if you are going for like the lead set, I would recommend Heavy Slam instead of Iron Tail, just because Iron Tail's accuracy is so terrible. Heavy Slam is so much better for that purpose. But if you're going for Coil, I mean, why not go for Iron Tail, right? Why not go for it? The only problem is that you can't immediately use Iron Tail. And even after you use Coil once, Iron Tail can still miss. So there is, of course, the risk involved with that. But just having the ability to use Coil, you do have Curse as well, I think. Yeah, you have Curse as well, but why would you use this when you can just go for Coil? And again, this thing's speed is 65. It's faster than most slow Pokemon, like slow, bulky Pokemon. Let me pull this up here. Let me go for PU. I pull the slow stuff. At 65 base speed, you are outrunning Appleton, Nagelstack, Spiritomb, which is important because this thing is Will-O-Wisp, definitely Avalugg, Arboliva, Girder, which would hurt you very hard with Drain Punch before you could hit it. So now you're outspeeding it. Probopass, the Golems, Lurantis, Hatchrim, Carbink, which is massive because you can just demolish that thing. Chansey, demolish it with Body Press. Muck, still hitting it very hard with Iron Tail. Berserker, Body Press. Sableye, it has Pranksters, so that's kind of unimportant. Ursaring, you outspeed that. Trevenant, Clawitzer, unless you boost the speed, like I said. Farigiraf, unless it's running the agility set. Abomasnow, which is super good to outrun that thing. Wheezing, which admittedly you're not going to kill very easily, but you do still outspeed it. Whiscash, Kamala, you speed tie with. And then everything after this outspeeds you. But good lord, does that outrun most bulky Pokemon in this tier. So 65 is so good, I would even I would even do this. Just so you can outspeed opposing Earthworms. It is surprisingly very fast for a slow Pokemon. I say that loosely. It's not fast, but it's faster than almost every other slow, bulky Pokemon, which makes it just gives it an innate advantage. It's very nice. It's very nice. Very strong with coil, very deadly. Of course, obviously, special attacks. That's the biggest weakness for this thing, obviously. So the goal, if you're going to try and win with this thing, get rid of the special attackers. Run a lot of high special defense, which is why I think Muck pairs so well with this thing. Has a weakness to ground, has a weakness to psychic. Go in this. You resist psychic, you're immune, and eat up ground moves. These two pair so well together, it's insane. I love it. Now, obviously, this thing is still weak to fighting and fire, so I would go ahead and use a water type to resist that fire move. Fighting is resisted by Muck, but it does not have the best defense, so maybe have another fighting resist or an immunity like Ghost. But yeah, this thing is close in my mind to probably getting banned just because of how strong it is, which is odd to say because it's Earthworm. But in this tier, it is so devastating. And it's funny because this Pokemon has terrible stats. The only thing good it has is defense, and yet because of its ability, its move set, and the fact that it could be an electric type with no weakness is just so good that it pushes it beyond its limitations. Next up, Passimian, Scarf. Oh boy, this thing is reliable. I mean, this thing is basically just Primeape, right? This thing is Primeape and Passimian have a long history of rivalry in the past generations, ever since Gen 7. Passimian usually comes out on top because it is stronger than Primeape, it is bulkier than Primeape, but it is slower than Primeape. And they compare themselves so much because of Defiant, right? They both have the Defiant ability. They're both pure fighting. They both have very similar move pools. So this thing, as in my opinion, you throw this thing on any Sticky Web team you have. Every single time you run Sticky Web and PU, you run this thing on it. Because it is so good at saying no to your opponent. If they try and defog you, you go Defiant, you double your attack, and now you're Scarf. You're destroying everything with ease, with insane ease. Its move pool backs it up. Gunk Shot's very strong, being able to hit opposing fairies and grass types that might be able to switch into your fighting moves better. Knock Off as well to deal with ghosts and psychics. Getting rid of items in general is just great. And then U-turn, being able to switch and scare your opponent to switch out, then you switch out yourself and gain the advantage once again. 80 base speed is not super fast, but with a Scarf, it is deadly. So you do want to watch out for that. For Terra types, I like to go Dark for the Scarf set because it does make you immune to Medicham, Zen, Headbutt, and just Psychic types in general. And it gives you Stab on your knockoff. However, if you're using the Bulk Up set, Terra Flying is really good. It flips the script. Instead of being weak to flying, now you are the flying type. And if you're running Bulk Up with Salac Berry, you are doing a lot of damage. Now you can go for Substitute as well to guarantee Salac Berry more often. It does, of course, weaken your coverage because then you're stuck with only fighting and flying, which is not bad. Fighting and flying coverage is really good, but it does limit you. Like once again, Rotom can deal with you very easily without knockoff. So you do have to sacrifice coverage if you want to go for substitute. But I have seen someone use this exact set, to good use, and it's pretty good. Again, if your opponent tries to intimidate you, you just get stronger, which is so cool. And even if you're not running Sticky Web, you run this thing. If you have like Stealth Rock spikes or Toxic spikes, you run this thing with Defiant, and they try and defog. Now you are just destroying them with Salic Berry boosting your speed as well. It's basically the speed of the Scarf set, but unhinged, like unchained by the move lock mechanic. And you're getting bulkier because of bulk up. Great HP, great defense, great attack, and decent speed. It is honestly just a fantastic fighting type. It is a really good pure fighting type. Next we got Rotom. I mentioned this already multiple times. Scarf set is going to be your go-to. You can go for substitute leftovers like max speed, max HP, or max speed, max special attack with sub leftovers. I think Scarf is just going to be your go-to, your best bet overall. You've got Thunderbolt, Hex. You can swap it out for Shadow Ball if you want. I think Hex is pretty good because you can use Will-O-Wisp, especially if you combine it with Toxic Spikes. Scarf Hex is going to be doing a ton of damage. And even then, like 65 base power is not terribly weak. It's not ideal, but it's not so bad that it makes it you feel like you're just wasting time. If you burn the opponent, if you poison the opponent, if you paralyze the opponent, Hex is going to be doing double damage, which is 130, which is much stronger than Shadow Ball. So I think the risk, the reward outweighs the risk for using Hex instead of Shadow Ball, in my opinion. And yeah, Trick Scarf is just tried and true, one of the best strategies you can use for this thing. And it's just good. That's all I can say. It's just really good. Next we got the Sneasel twins. You got the dark ice type. Yes, Butterbean. Yes, I am looking at you. I am paying attention to you. Yes, you are so cute. My baby dog. You are so cute. You are so cute. You are so cute. All right. This thing is just very good. I'm shocked it's dropped to PU because it is just very strong. If you look at stats, it used to be just a standalone Pokemon until it got the evolution of Weavile, which, by the way, is one of the few later introduced evolutions of a Pokemon that is actually faster. Why the hell does every afterthought evolution slow down? It's so annoying. It is such a pet peeve of mine that every single evolution has to be slower. And it's not by like a few points. It's like at least 10. Which is disastrous. Anyway, rant over. Even freaking Ursaluna drops to 50, and I just ask why. Why? Just keep it the same speed. I'm angry. But this Pokemon is very min-max when it comes to its stats. Its special attack is 35. I'd love to see that. Because that means the rest of its stats are going to be much better. You got 55 HP, 55 defense, 75 special defense. So it means its bulk is not very good, but 95 base attack and 115 base speed. 115 is so much like leagues above the rest of PU. It's funny. Of course, you're still outrun by Dugtrio and Wugtrio if anyone is crazy enough to use that. And of course, Electro outspeeds you. But this thing, overall, does not have to worry about being outsped too often. You run a Choice Band on it. You got knockoff, Icicle Crash, chance to flinch, low kick to hit Steel, and just a whole lot of types, opposing dark types specifically. And then Ice Shard, just because if the opponent is running Dugtrio, I might as well outspeed it with Ice Shard. Choice Band's going to make it do some good damage, and Dugtrio is so frail you could breathe on it and it dies, so it's it's worth it to use Ice Shard in my opinion. Now you can also go for a Swords Dance set, but I don't think it's as good for Sneasel. I think Sneasel is better running a band set. You can also run an anti-lead set with Taunt. If you want to do that with like heavy duty boots, I think that's totally viable. But when it comes to Swords Dance, I think that goes to the Poison Twin of Sneasel. This is the fighting poison type. Same exact stats, but I actually think Eviolite is worth it to run on this one. Now, if you look at Sneasel base form, you got Dark Ice. That's not very good defensively. Your times for weak to fighting, you're weak to Steel, Bug, Fairy, Fire, Rock, Uh, just a whole lot of types that hit you super effectively, and not a whole lot of resistances. You resist ice, dark. You're immune to psychic. You resist ghost, and that's it. So you don't have a whole lot of resistances. I don't think it's worth it to try and use what little, just sliver of bulk this Pokemon has. But for a poison fighting type, I think it is worth it. And that's mainly because it resists significantly more. It resists poison, fighting, dark, bug, it resists grass. And I think there's one more, but I'm forgetting it. Rock. So it resists quite a bit, actually. Quite a bit more than base Sneasel. So this purple one here is a little bit better defensively. Not to mention, it does have a times 4 weakness to Psychic, but you can go Terra Dark. I recommend Terra Dark. For this one, I recommend going like Terra Fighting, just to abuse Low Kick a little bit better. And also, get rid of the times 4 weakness to Fighting. This I recommend going Dark, because your opponent's obviously going to try and hit you with a Psychic move, especially with all the Psychic types in this tier. Going Dark and then hitting them with Night Slash is so good. Unfortunately, this thing does not have knockoff. I'm upset by that. Because this thing is built the exact same to this Sneasel. It is the same exact build. Like, looking at it physically is what I'm saying. Like, the design is identical except for color. And for some reason, this one doesn't have knockoff. I guess it's because it's not a dark type, but come on. Give it knockoff. Night Slash, honestly, though, is not too bad. The abilities aren't anything too crazy, but not flinching to fake out is nice. But yeah, Night Slash is just, it's weak, but it's all you've got. Best you can do is Lash Out as like a slightly more powerful version, but I think the chance to crit is more worth it for Night Slash, in my opinion, than Lash Out. You can go for Fling. Fling Big Nugget. You don't really have a lot of options for dark moves, but Night Slash is decent. It will get the job done, especially with Sword Stance. And I recommend Sword Stance for this. You can also go for Band. As far as other physical moves it can use, you can go for Shadow Claw. If you don't want dark coverage, you can go for Ghost. You can go for Trailblaze. And I can even see an argument for getting rid of Night Slash altogether and placing Trailblaze here, because now you're outspeeding Electrode. Now you're outspeeding Dugtrio. And you're also hitting ground, which this Pokemon doesn't hit very hard, which is kind of a weakness of it, is that, it doesn't hit defensive ground types very, very well. You can also sub in Terra Blast instead of Night Slash, and go for Terra Grass or something, but that also changes your type, which is a whole nother can of worms. Again, you've got options with this thing. I just think when it comes to a Sword Stance set, I think this is a much better user of it as opposed to regular Sneasel. I think base Sneasel is just going to be so much better as a Band or Boots, taunt user. This is going to be better, I think, as an Eviolite, but you could go for Choice Band if you wanted to. So yeah, this thing is pretty solid. I like it. I like both Sneasels. The twins are here, and I think they're very good. Maybe too good. We'll see. Next is Ursaring. Ursaring is the only Pokemon that went from that can possibly go from untiered, getting an evolution and gaining the Eviolite, and then dropping back to the bottom tier again. This is the only Pokemon that could do that. It's kind of frustrating because it is like a paradox of its own self. It is its own paradox, because you want Eviolite, because look at these things' stats, right? 90 HP is good. 75 in defenses is okay. When you put the Eviolite on it, this thing is insane. This thing is another Snorlax, right? 130 base attack. It's even stronger than Snorlax. It's faster than Snorlax. For some reason, it has 75 special attack, but we'll ignore it. This thing with an Eviolite is one of the bulkiest Pokemon, if not the bulkiest Pokemon in PU right now. However, its ability is not as useful anymore because you're not using Flame Orb. Now, in the past, you would use the Flame Orb to guarantee burn this thing so it could activate Guts. When you have Guts, the attack drop from burn does not affect you, so you have free extra power. You have 50% more attack, And then Facade is going to go from 70 to 140 base power because you have a status. Except Sleep, I think. I don't think it counts Sleep. Yeah, Burn, Poison, or Paralyze. I wish it counted Sleep. Please make it count Sleep in Gen 10. Anyway, Play Rough, good for dealing with fighting types. Crunch, good for dealing with ghost types. And Bulk Up, good for boosting your attack and defense and making you even more bulky. Of course, this Pokemon is, reliant on Eviolite in this set for you to use, so you don't want your opponent to knock you off. If you're using the Flame Orb set, you don't really care if your opponent knocks you off. But this thing, again, because you're using Eviolite, you don't have Flame Orb, so you have to kind of just get lucky and hope your opponent, switch into your opponent using Will-O-Wisp. And only Will-O-Wisp. Because you don't want to get hit by Toxic, because it will kill you. And you don't want to get hit by Nuzzle, or Thunderwave, or Glare, because it can stun you on certain turns. You really only want to bait Burn, and thankfully there's a lot of Will-O-Wisp in PU that's running around, specifically with the Rotoms. So it's possible your opponent just kind of has to be an idiot. Your opponent you have to rely on your opponent making a very stupid mistake. And especially with the Rotoms as well, they could easily just Trick instead of Will-O-Wisp. Like, both of those are equally damaging moves for like a strategy. So your opponent could not even go for Will-O-Wisp and just trick you with a Scarf, and now you're screwed. So again, I think it's cool that this thing gets access to Eviolite. It just means it's more defensive than it is offensive now, and that's where Bulk Up comes in, right? That's where Bulk Up comes in. Or if you're a madman, you can go for Swords Dance. That's equally viable. That is equally viable. You just are even more powerful. So, again, the idea is cool. I think the idea of Eviolite Ursaring is sick. It's just limited by what it used to want to do. It used to want to run Flame Orb all the time, but now it's much more enticing to run Eviolite. So it's a tricky Pokemon to use, I think, but it is, as far as raw bulk and power, one of the best Pokemon in PU right now, I think. I would not be surprised if this thing got banned. And this is not the only set it can run. You can also run Sleep Talk. So this thing, again, Guts will not boost Sleep, I don't think. Pokemon is status. I don't know. That seems to imply that it includes Sleep. Let me do a quick /data Guts. Okay. If I do /DT Guts, will it show anything different? Nope. Okay. Well, that makes me think. That honestly makes me think that it includes Sleep. If it includes Sleep, this is insane. I don't know this for sure, so don't take everything I'm saying here for 100% validation. But if it includes Sleep, this is a very strong set. Now, why are we using Play Rough instead of Facade? Well, or Body Slam, right? The reason is there's a lot of ghost types. And that completely shuts you down. No chance, absolutely no chance of winning if the opponent has a ghost type. However, nothing is immune to Fairy. So if you run Play Rough, you are not only beating the fighting types that are expecting to beat you, you are hitting everything in the game for at least not very effective damage, which is better than nothing. So I prefer Play Rough to Body Slam or Facade, and going Terra Fairy. And I recommend Terra Fairy for the bulk up set as well. Fairy is just a broken typing in general, so having that is really nice. Rest Sleep Talk, it's not reliable because Sleep Talk it randomly chooses between your 3 other moves, which can include Rest, which means on some turns, you're not doing anything. And as the game progresses, and you've used Bulk Up 6 times already, the Sleep Talk can use 2 useless moves at that point. So it's not reliable, but Suicune has had its entire career based off of that strategy and has proven it to work. So if you can deal with the luck factor, this set is very good. Max HP, max special defense, bulk up, boosting your attack and defense. you're hitting hard with play rough, and your opponent cannot kill you because you're using rest and sleep talk. Now, if the opponent has knockoff or trick, I do not recommend trying to set up this strategy until they are dealt with. You have to get rid of those item removers. Then you can go for this, because otherwise your Eviolites can get knockoff and they're going to kill you with special moves. As long as you have the Eviolite, though, there is very little that could punch through this. There is very little in the game that could punch through this. And I think this might actually be the set that gets this Pokemon banned from PU. But we'll see. We'll see. It's up in the air at the moment if it will even get banned at all. It would not surprise me. Let me just say that. It would not surprise me at all if this thing got banned. And you don't even need to go Terra Fairy to use this thing very well. Obviously, Play Rough has 16 power points, which is not a whole lot for a Pokemon that's trying to stall. But Sleep Talk, whenever it uses Play Rough, does not use its power point. It uses Sleep Talk's power point. So you're basically having 32 maximum potential, right? You have maximum potential of 32 Play Roughs. So most likely going to be somewhere in the 20s. But it is better than just relying only on 16, which is where the Body Slam argument comes in. Body Slam could be better because it has 24 base power and it paralyzes the opponent. So, there's room to argue there. There's also room to argue for, I think it does not get Drain Punch, actually. Never mind. There's an argument for a fighting move instead of a normal or fairy move. But me personally, I think Play Rough is going to be the better option just because it hits everything. And again, Fairy is such a broken typing. Very, very effective at going this with the Rest Sleep Talk set. This thing has effectively become a better Granbull. Let's just be real. It's a better Granbull, which Ursaring has always been. Until Granbull became Fairy. Then it got the upper hand there. Next, two left, almost done. Victreebel. This thing is another Sun Sweeper to join the likes of Leavanny. Very nice. Chlorophyll doubling its speed, growth doubling its attack and special attack, keeps your opponent on their toes, thinking if you're going to use physical or special, you're going to be using special, because this thing has Weather Ball. In the Sun, that is a fire move, and it's 100 base power whenever Sun is up, so it's very strong, very good coverage, and your Grass Poison, which is a pretty solid typing. You resist quite a bit. So it's a very, very good Pokemon. I recommend going Terra Fire if you're going to be using this on a Sun Sweeping team. Definitely recommend going Terra Fire to get that extra stab on Weather Ball, and also just resisting all of your move types. It's a very effective type to go into. Special attack of 100 is very good, even though it has higher physical attack. I do think it's worth it to go for special because of that coverage. 70 base speed, as mentioned with Ludicolo, if you double 70, that is outrunning pretty much everything in the tier. So you don't really have to worry about too many Scarf Pokemon outspeeding you. But yeah, it's overall pretty good. I can't complain. Last up, Vivillon. This is just, I think, just the best bug flying type Quiver Dance user. It has the highest speed at 95, has very high special attack at 90. I say very high, but very high for bugs. And then 80 HP, which is not terrible. Its defenses are terrible, but the HP is what builds the foundation for what Quiver Dance builds upon, the special defense. So it allows you to take special hits much better than you would think. And also, of course, Quiver Dance boosts your special attack, special defense, and speed. One of the most broken setup moves in the game. So combine that with the fact that you have Compound Eyes, making sure your Hurricanes are hitting far more often. Bug Buzz for stab, which is 90 base power, which is pretty good, hitting your grass types, psychic types, and dark types. And Terra Blast to give whatever coverage you don't hit. Steel. You do not hit Steel with this Pokemon. So you're going to want to go Terra Fighting, Terra Ground, or Terra Fire. And I like Ground. I like Ground a lot, but with Earthworm running around, it might just be better to go for Terra Fighting or Terra Fire. Heavy duty boots because, again, it's bug flying type. So it's times 4 weak to rocks. So yeah, I highly recommend going for a Terra Blast move, that Terra type that will hit Steel, because that is your biggest weakness, is the fact this Pokemon doesn't hit Steel. It also does not hit Rock, which is another reason why you'd want to go for Terra Fighting or Ground. So just keep that in mind whenever you're choosing your type. If you don't care about hitting steel, you can go for energy ball and hit rock types that way. But just, again, you're not hitting steel very hard. So yeah, I mean, this thing is pretty solid. It's not a bad Pokemon at all. And it certainly beats Beautifly, Butterfree, even Masquerain, and pretty much every other bug flying type in the game. And they are numerous. Except for Scyther. But that's honestly just because Scyther is so different than this. Anyway, that's all of them. That's all the new Pokemon added to PU. And they're all very good. I think they all have a strong case for why they're going to be top in their respective in PU. I think they're going to be the top, the new top dogs of the tier. And I think it's going to be very interesting to see how how everything changes. How Pokemon that were once top of the ladder now are going to be falling down probably. And what that will do to the ZU tier, which is the sort of unofficial tier below PU. So, my dog is whining. She wants to see her uncle because my brother just woke up. So, I will let her out. Thanks so much for watching. If you want more of my content, make sure you subscribe to get notified when I go live next or when I upload a video. Follow my socials and check out my comics and novel projects. Until next time,